I'm super excited to finally talk about X-Men '97. Ever since they announced it, it's been really, really excited. Daniel, first thoughts, give them to me. Go.
It was awesome. I mean, I was a big fan of X-Men in general, and of course the animated series in the 90s as a kid, but seeing it reimagined like this,
Yeah, I,
it's
I,
what
I,
dreams are made of.
I remember it was the when they announced it, how excited we both were. We're like, holy shit, like it's happening. Because like it's something that like super came it caught us off guard, because like you never would have thought a sequel to the 90s classic would be announced, you know.
First one, the endings felt so people were left so dissatisfied with that. So it kind of does make sense that they would try to
Yeah.
repurpose that into something
Yeah,
else.
the crazy thing is that with the original X Men, uh, it they did have a certain amount of seasons planned out, but then I guess the Makati Mucks got a little not sure if greedy is the right word, but they pushed out another season, and I guess like that's what the last season. The animation isn't that great. The storylines do feel kind of rushed, and then that's why they weren't able to like close it out full circle. I guess. I mean, it did have an ending. It did have like a sort of proper ending. What with Professor X leaving, and that's exactly where we come back from '97. And what I thought was great, besides like the whole show being fucking phenomenal, and you know a ooh, effing phenomenal. We're gonna have to edit that out. My bad. um, besides the
We'll just
show,
beep it.
yeah. Besides the show being super phenomenal, is that it 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 can get like both new watchers and old like us. So like we watched like all of, like the '90s cartoon or whatever, so we've done our quote unquote homework. But if someone like say my younger sister who wasn't even alive in the '90s, oh god, that hurt me. Um, and she was watching X Men. She could watch X Men '97 and like just from the get go. Doesn't have to watch all prior seasons. Which you know, honestly, I think it's a disservice because it's great content. But yeah, you didn't have to, and I think they did a good job. Just like you know, you can watch everything and you'll appreciate it more for it, but it's not completely necessary. I think they did a great job doing that.
Yeah. And one thing that they did keep was the intro,
The
which is
intro, the like chills, man. As soon as you fire up the first episode, you hear the music. The animation is it kind of captures the same feeling that the original '90s show did. Obviously, it's a little bit different, but yeah, totally just captures the same
Morph was
feeling.
in the title. They gave Morph some credit.
Yeah. That was great. Yeah, and the cool thing is that it changed from for each episode. Like they would, you know, let's say a certain character died in a certain episode number five. The next episode, just remove that character like out of there. Um, you know, hypothetically speaking, that may or may not have happened.
I mean, spoilers ahead or now. It was Magneto.
and come on, you gotta remember his name.
Gambit. Gambit.
Yeah, remember
Oh
it,
no, that's
Shelly.
more.
Obviously, we're big fans of X Men in general. You have been chomping at the bit of like just X Men joining the MCU, and this is the first like drip feed of them finally joining the MCU. But when it was
What
announced,
I thought originally, but how bad MCU has been as of late, I kind of, and how great X-Men 97 was, I kind of want it to be its own thing. I don't think they'd have to try to work so hard to keep this thing canon. I
right?
think you have room to do both things, like just keep
Yes.
the animation as an animation and just keep the movies as movies. I have been excited about like since Disney acquired Fox and then the IP gets to be transferred and
Yeah.
hopefully soon they get to introduce him in the MCU. But I kind of like the way X-Men 97 has been doing and the direction that they're taking, and I haven't been so pleased with the direction that the MCU has been taking. So
Right.
therefore, I kind of would rather have them keep it separate. I know I've said that, but it's just as far as animation, I just want to keep keep this universe as its own thing.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see how they would tie it in unless like the live action X Men uh, is canon to the animated. Yeah, I
Which
don't want
would
that
be
either.
weird.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
would be weird, but I can totally see Disney trying and trying to do something like that. And yeah, like you said, we just don't have as much confidence in the MCU as of late. I personally have been um, like warm. Sorry, that's my dog in the background. Gotta love hardwood floors. But yeah, I've been I haven't been as hard on the MCU lately. Granted, I haven't even watched the Marvels. It just like, and I wanted to watch it. It's just it's not must watch content anymore. Versus like how the MCU was like right up until maybe a little bit after Endgame. You know, with like Spider Man. Um, it was definitely must watch content, and even upcoming with the Deadpool, I think that's kind of bringing some of the same energy back from what I've seen. Where even you and I were like, all right, man, we're getting tickets. We're maybe it might not be day one, but we're getting the weekend of,
Yeah.
and that's what we need. And I think that's what X Men '97 brought back to the table because like I'm both a fan and not a fan of like the weekly releases. Um, just because like I'm being very greedy, I want more like of the story, I want more content, but at the same time it let me digest each episode and just like absorb it and keep it with me for like the rest of the week. And it's like, oh yeah, they did the thing.
That's you bring up a perfect point because that binge culture does make it so you can't. You just want to figure out what's happening
Yeah,
right afterwards. So, yeah, that makes sense. I'm kind of the same way. I kind of like watching it all at once, but it's just something that I think after the way like especially the death of Gambit was kind of you were like
oh my
how is this
god.
gonna yeah how is the next episode gonna play out?
Yeah, and that's another thing with like spoiler culture. um I saw his death on TikTok before I even watched the episode. So imagine they release the whole season right off the bat. People are gonna just mess with you just because they can, just because like that's what they enjoy doing for whatever reason. So it's like, oh yeah, I know that the season just aired, but here's like a major plot point. Luckily, I don't mind spoilers, and it was still like a phenomenal episode. I mean, like the season had been great. We'll talk more about that in a second, but yeah, just like my point on like why I think the weekly episodes are great, and I hope that they keep it. Just because, like, again, I like we have adult lives. We can't watch it all in one sitting as much as we'd like to, or if we can, it definitely won't be on release date. It would probably be all right. Cool. I'll set some time this Sunday. So let's say they release it Wednesday. So you have like those days where it's like, all right, you gotta like social media blackout. And at this point, with how big X Men '97 was, it's not even just social media. Because I remember seeing like some news articles on, like, oh, X thing happened, or no pun intended, but like this thing happened on X Men and blah blah blah. It's like, Jesus Christ, like it's bringing it back, pretty much. It's putting the MCU back in people's minds and mouths, and it did the thing.
Do you how long should it be before you get to spoil it? Because when something big like that happens, like that death, like how long do you
So
think you have before? Because people do want to talk about it.
yeah, no, and that's the difference. So you could I think like you should be able to like talk about it. I wanted to freaking talk about it, but like and I have my friend who I always like, she's a big nerd like me, so I text her, did you watch it yet? She's like, no. Okay, cool, let me know when you do, we got to talk about it.
You should text her. Did you see Gambit die yet?
Yeah, exactly. No, I think she did something like that to me one time. I forgot the context of what it was, but she just texted me a character's name and a sad face. I'm like, what happened to this character. Oh, you haven't seen it yet? I'm like, no. Oh, I thought you did. I'm like, God damn it. So, but back on like the spoilers thing. So, um, I am part of like different like Facebook groups, for example, like just nerd groups, and they have like the discussion posts where it's like, hey, like for the good of the group, because it's not necessarily like an X-Men group, but it's just like an overall like nerd group. Uh, but they're like, hey, for the sake of others that haven't watched it yet, can we keep discussion on like X-Men 97 to this post? Just for this episode, episode 1, did you watch it? What did you think? Keep it here, and people are able to vent out. So I think it's cool in that way. Other than that, like maybe 2 weeks, 2 3 weeks, depending on what it is, because X-Men 97 is weekly releases. It's kind of like trickier. But let's say like Deadpool and Wolverine, I would say like maybe a month after release. It's like whoever by that point, I think it's fair to say whoever wanted to watch it would have watched it by then. Granted, it gets kind of tricky with like the financial situations and stuff like that, but yeah, spoilers, man.
Yeah, I think you have at least, I would say a week or two. I
Yeah,
have to break it down in numbers.
yeah, and even then, still give the heads up, like, hey, spoilers ahead. Kind of like we're doing with this episode. It's been um, quite some time since it ended. It like people have been talking about it, and it's like still we would give like a spoiler warning at the beginning of it, because like obviously we're gonna want to talk about it, and if they haven't like finished it, we don't want to ruin it. Again, me myself, I don't mind spoilers. Sometimes I even seek it out just because like I'm like, oh, I don't have time, I need to know answers. I need them now. For me, it's part what I'm excited for is the journey as well, so it doesn't ruin the journey for me. It's like, oh, but how did we get there, that. But that's just me. I know I am like the minority in spoiler territory. What do you think?
Spoiler territory?
Yeah, like, I mean, do you mind getting spoiled or not? That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I would rather not.
Right,
Some
right.
things I just sometimes I would much rather not get spoiled, because I think the time when you have there's a reason why they put the end of that episode, and it happens a lot in a lot of TV shows where if a certain death happens, they always do it at the end of the show and leave it there, so it kind of creates this curiosity of, oh my
The
god, what's gonna happen
water
after this
cooler
character's
moment.
dead? Yeah. So I would much rather not, because I do want to have that emotion in place, because
Right.
Gambit is one of my favorite characters
Oh my god,
in
I
the
was
X-Men team. It would be,
devastated.
yeah, top three would be Psylocke, Gambit, and Wolverine. Those would be my top three. But like, yeah, just I I would I know that sometimes, like, depending, like, some people can't read the room properly, therefore, like, I get sometimes their excitement and they're wanting to discuss it, so they just, like your friend, she just
Yeah,
tells you, oh, you
yeah,
see it, like, she's so excited to talk about it. So I get, like, I think a lot of times it's not intentional. Like, I think some people do it intentionally, and those
doo doo.
fuck those guys. But outside of the people that just are excited and want to talk about it, they just kind of, I do that sometimes too. I'm just
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes like,
I
yeah,
think the worst are the people that do it on purpose,
yeah,
and
that
there
those are
there
the
are a
people
bunch
that
of
are
like
worse.
douchebags. But
Yeah, but as far as, I would, of course, I would not rather get spoiled, but it, I don't. To be honest, I don't think it would take as much away from, not maybe to a small degree, but not as much as I
yeah,
think it would. But I would much rather not be spoiled.
yeah.
If
It's
I,
for me.
let's
Yeah, I
just
guess
leave
it
it
just
at that, because I
depends.
think my aunt's answer is getting a little too complicated. But let's just leave it at, I don't want to
Like
be
it
spoiled,
depends.
because
What are we talking about
yeah,
here? Are we talking about Star
yeah,
Wars or are we talking about X Men? Because for Star Wars, I
yeah,
don't care.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, I get you.
Yeah. If Darth Vader was the father, I'm just like, okay, yeah, that's great. But
What?
if it's like, Gambit died,
What? Nah.
but
Anyway, so like bringing the conversation back to X Men. Um,
Oh, I thought we were talking
pers-
about Star Wars. Okay.
yeah, no, that's a different podcast. Sorry. Yeah, you're not even a Star Wars guy. I'm surprised you knew that Darth Vader.
I like Star Wars. I just never got that into it. I think because a lot of my friends that are huge Star Wars fans, why is it talking to? Why are we talking about Star Wars?
I'm
You
like,
guys,
I was trying to bring the conversation back to X-Men, but I'm interested in your Star Wars
no,
story.
but I have to say this one thing though. But it's just I think a lot of their dads and moms were Star Wars fans. That's what they kind of naturally was grew up into it.
Right.
I never knew someone that was older than me that was kind of like, you have to watch Star Wars, and it's just kind of like okay, because Star Wars technically came out in the '80s, and I was just like, I was an embryo back then. So
I wasn't even a
so
thought
it's just
yet.
yeah, so it's just like it's kind of like oh, I don't know, like a lot of people that are really my age that are diehard Star Wars fans kind of got introduced by their parents. So I don't know, like I like it. I
Yeah.
just don't like. It's not what me and my friends we
Right.
grew up watching X Men, so like that's why I'm super excited, stoked about X Men.
That's funny. Keeping it Star Wars one more sec. I'll tell my Star Wars story and then we'll move on
Okay,
back to the
yeah,
main topic.
yeah,
But
and
no,
I'll double your and I'll double your
so like our X
sure.
Men '97 talk turned into our Star Wars origin story. No, but no, because it's funny that you mentioned your parents being into it. For me, it was actually my
Well, my parents weren't into it.
you
That's
know,
why.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but for me, it wasn't my parents either. It was my sixth grade science teacher. It was like it was so random. Yeah, not sixth. Yeah, sixth grade. So it was like one of those like rainy days or something. And I guess she had like no lesson plan, so she just put a movie to shut the kids up, and she had Return of the Jedi, and I was just in. And of course, it's like a 2 hour long movie for a 1 hour period or 45 minute long period. I'm like, I need to finish this. I go up to her, can I borrow this movie? And she's like, yeah, just come after school and you can borrow it. And I think that just set me up to being like an like uber nerd. But anyway,
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's why that's you technically introduced to it, or your friend circle kind of.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
totally.
that's how you're introduced to it.
Yeah, because my
Yeah, as
cousin was
far as
already like
I
really
never.
into it too.
Yeah.
All right, back to X Men '97. We can just
But one
like
more thing about Star Wars.
okay, and then and then we'll
Just
clip
kidding.
this.
I have nothing. I just have to give my thing.
No, I get it. I get it. That's where the conversation went
No,
naturally, and
because
we got to
when
do.
I
We
say when I
got.
say I'm not that into Star Wars, that's the exact reaction I get from people. Just like, how can you? I'm like, I
No,
like
I
it.
mean I
I
get
just
it,
don't.
especially
I'm not
now
like
where
diehard about it.
yeah, no, I totally get it. I just tease you about it. People are gonna like what they like, especially now where it might be oversaturated as
I
well.
like things. I like X things.
I don't like X things, like X Men. So speaking of liking, um, what were your highlights for the season? So I obviously
Oh,
we're huge fans of like the whole season as a whole, and for me
mhm.
like it's I have like way too many highlights, but like or do you have any lows if you can't think of like specific highlights?
Lowe's. Well, they didn't show Rogue's ass enough in this one. That's my
That
only.
did become a topic of conversation in social media, where it's these like I'm sorry, but like losers just screenshotting.
What? They're like asses. What's wrong with
Oh,
that?
well, okay, that's fine, but come on, they. It's different where like you're joking about it versus them. They're like, look what they took from us, but they were so serious. They were so serious. They're like, this is what happens when Disney owns it. We lost our rogue, and it was one where she's like in a certain position and she has like that like for lack of a better word, juicy, bubbly butt. And then there's this another screenshot of like from the trailer. Keep in mind at this point the show's not even out. It's just the trailer, and Rogue it just looks like super flat. And it just became a topic of conversation of arguments. It's like it's a cartoon, man. Are we really doing this? Um,
You know what? You're gonna hate me, but I'm kind of with those guys. They took Rogue's ass from away from us.
you're one of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I want to go as crazy as
Yeah,
they
that's
do in the
the,
show.
yeah.
I
That's so
would have
you're
liked
not
to
one of
see
those guys. You're one of those that like appreciate the animation for what it is, I guess, but not you didn't let it ruin the show for you. So.
No, never mind. It ruined the show. I hate this
All
thing.
right,
Really
cool.
ruined it.
So we're cutting the
Everything is
episode short.
good. No, also another low I think is how Storm got her powers back. I think it was kind of anticlimactic in
That's
my opinion. That
my
was
low as
yeah,
well, especially
yeah, it's
like when it happened. Yeah, so for me, because like her episode happened right after Gambit's death, so like she loses her powers and she leaves the X-Men, and that was a great character moment. Just because like she comes from being like this god, she with like um, godlike powers, loses
you
said
can't feel the
powers.
moisture in the air.
Yeah, and then so yeah, that's a cool character moment. But then we kind of like leave her, um, and then continue with the story, and then we have Gambit dying, and of course that kind of like takes, um, in my mind, it kind of takes like the forefront of what I want to see a resolution to. The next episode was the resolution to Storm and her powers, which for me kind of like it was still a good episode. Don't just because I think it's low doesn't mean I think it's terrible by any means. But it was definitely it did definitely like slow down the momentum that it was building because like with each episode it's like things were happening and it's like like slow down a little bit, and I guess they heard me and it like kind of came to screeching halt in a sense because it was like a story like for the majority just on Storm and how she was gonna get her powers back with Forge, I think it was.
Hmm.
But yeah, that definitely was one of the lows for me, and even then I was still like pretty high on it, but it's still uh, one of those moments where it's like, oh, this is what we're gonna do. We're not getting a resolution as to is Magneto alive or is he looked pretty dead, but it's a comic book property. Gambit could still be alive. Is he like? Well, I mean, we did get our answers. Like I said earlier in the intro, where both Magneto and Gambit were taken out of the the intro, and in their place was Nightcrawler. But yeah, that was
Yeah,
definitely a low for me.
it just I don't know. It's just that I think you kind of nailed it. It's just that high after or low. I mean, as far as feelings, it's just such a rush of an episode, especially how
Yeah,
it ended, and you just get a like a weird calm
I guess they gave us
tone.
like some
Of,
time to
yeah,
breathe or something, but it's like, no, man,
no, I
I
want to be
can't breathe right
suffocated.
now. It's like I
Be
can't breathe. I need
suffocated.
answers. What the hell happened? You can't have Rogue like crying into as it fades to black, like I can't feel you, and then give me a storyline based somewhere else entirely. You can't do that to me, man.
Hmm. Great
um,
stuff.
yeah, and another. I don't know if it would so much be as a low, but definitely something like to note would be that some storylines did feel a bit rushed to me.
Which
Like,
ones?
like a lot of like the Goblin Queen one, for example, where it's like to me it seemed like, oh, this could be a couple episodes worth of like storyline, but everything was resolved like that episode when Goblin Queen was she was revealed, and what you call it? Yeah, their son has that disease, and they have to like send him to the future to get cured with I think it was with Bishop or
Hmm.
Forge. I get him confused, but yeah,
Well, they work in the same plane of time. I think. I
yeah,
don't know.
but like no, but
X Men it gets really complicated with its
yeah,
timelines. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, that would be my quote unquote like low. It just like some storylines did feel a bit rushed, but again, it didn't stop me from definitely enjoying what we got because it was
Hmm.
top tier um, quality content. Um,
Yeah, I think it was like if I had to take a guess, um the Sentinel. I already forgot the villain's name because that's when
oh my god,
I
I
have
have
it.
it. The main villain for the story.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
It's
to be honest,
Bastion.
he was something Sebastian. There you
No,
go. Like
yeah, yeah, Bastion.
Bastion or Sebastian, one of those. Yeah, but
Yeah,
like I think the other stories were kind of like side missions to the main, if you will. So I
yeah,
think I get why they did it that way. It's just kind of, you because they introduce Sinister and you think Sinister is going to be the main villain and you're like, "Wait, where is this going?" And they
yeah.
think Master Mold and it just you just get introduced to a bunch of villains and you're just wondering, okay, where's this all leading to? And it's just this one villain that's kind of the mastermind. All comes together at the last two episodes. So,
Yeah, and then the
I can
main
see why
villain,
that they took that direction, to be honest with you.
was with us all along.
Yeah, it was all
Who could have seen
all
that
along.
coming?
Yeah.
But what should we call it? Something that some people didn't see coming, and I, for one, did appreciate. I think you did too. Was the fact that Wolverine had a back seat in the show. He wasn't
No,
at the
I didn't appreciate
forefront.
that at all.
You didn't?
Wolverine's kind of like if you're kind of like a semi lukewarm X-Men fan, if I were to say, "Hey, do you know X-Men?" and someone would probably answer like, "I know who Wolverine is.
Yeah,
He's like the most popular character." So therefore, I don't know. I guess one thing I know what I think where I know where this is going. It's kind of like a lot of people have been kind of like dogging Cyclops and how he was played in the original X-Men, and he's
yeah,
kind of like the ragdoll, and he's always being punched and bullied, and if you will, he's always whining, and
yeah. He definitely
and I think there's
he
one
got his flowers this season for sure.
yeah, and then it's just like that idea that like Cyclops was this like he was a badass in this in '97, but as far as the original one, he was kind of like the least likable.
Yeah, definitely. He
Yeah,
was the leader nobody liked, or just
there you go.
he was very vanilla in a
Yeah.
world
Yeah,
where,
vanilla is the right term.
yeah,
He wasn't necessarily. He was. Yeah,
because he
I
wasn't
think
bad.
especially in the.
It's just like he
Yeah,
definitely didn't stand out in a world where with like Wolverine and Gambit and
yeah,
Rogue Storm. Well, they all have like these personalities, and Cyclops, he was just very vanilla, by the numbers leader, and that's
yeah.
how they wrote
Plus,
him. And yeah, definitely didn't stand out.
yeah, because also in the first ever, the original one, the first ever episode, when they try to hit the Sentinel base, the X Men retreated because no, it wasn't. It wasn't a Sentinel base. I think the Sentinels kind of countered their surprise attack, so therefore, like they left Morph behind.
Hmm.
And I think as an audience member, you kind of when you watch superhero movies, superheroes are supposed to like save everybody at whatever cost, and
Yeah,
Cyclops, it's it makes sense because he's a leader. He doesn't want he'd rather have like one or two members die as opposed to
yeah,
like his whole team die. So they do have to retreat. So one of the characters that they did leave behind was Morph and Beast. But like, yeah, I think in that sense he was kind of painted as the unfavorable one
yeah,
as opposed to Wolverine's kind of like we have to go back for them, and he's punching Cyclops in the
yeah.
stomach, and
He's the
he's all pissed
rebel.
about it. Yeah, he's like the rebel, and people like do root for that kind of character.
Yeah,
So, yeah, and I think it was a big switch, especially that superhero landing where he did a
so
skydive and he did like a
badass,
super
man.
upset. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was like, I didn't even know that was possible.
yeah.
Okay, they reimagined this character.
Wait, so you said
But
you don't appreciate Wolverine taking the back seat then? Because it
yeah, because
sounds like
I
you
mean,
like.
just as a Wolverine fan, I kind of wish he took more of a forefront in
Okay,
the series. But like I can see why they did it. But if I had my choice, I kind of would have liked a little bit more Wolverine.
okay, maybe give him a few more things to do. But
Well, he's
I liked the
I
direction that
think
they took him in, where he wasn't at the forefront. He wasn't the face of X-Men '97, because they could have totally done that, and rightfully so, since yeah, everyone, like you said, if they're gonna know X-Men, they think, like, let's say for my mom, for example, if I mention X-Men, she would think Wolverine is X-Men, because just like Super Mario is Nintendo, that kind of like, that's how they
Mhm.
connect the two. So that's why I wouldn't blame them if they had Wolverine once again be at the forefront of the series. That's why I'm kind of glad like he took a step back. They did like take two steps back and have him like just be a background character for the most part, which I hope kind of changes a little season two, which it might. But uh,
Wolverine is by just in the comic books the most interesting character as far as comics are
yeah,
concerned because you're talking about a guy who practically lived like several centuries. You know, he's seen some things, man. He's seen some things.
Oh yeah,
And I
definitely.
think I'm not sure if I want to get into this right now, but I'm gonna go just for the sake of conversation. At the end of it, Magneto obviously kind of like spoiler. I mean, we already spoiled it, so I'm just gonna just spoil it.
Yeah.
It's a very famous issue called, I think, Fatal Attractions in the comic books, where Magneto rips Wolverine's adamantium out. And
Mhm.
I think if you read it in the comic books, I'm not sure how they're gonna play it out in the series, but like in the comic book, I think Jean Grey kind of like is using her powers to keep Wolverine together. I was reading this when I was young, so my observation skills wasn't the
Right.
greatest, so bear with me. But like they kind of were sharing minds, and one like in the comic book, I remember when like Jean Grey and him were like having like a discussion where like Wolverine's he had his like whole body ripped apart, so therefore like he's in the verge of dying. And then I think
Mhm.
Jean and him were having this conversation, and then like there's a light which represents like him going, him dying, and he's like walking towards it, and Jean's saying like don't go, and then Jean and Wolverine's like, yo, don't you think I want to go? And then like kind of like that idea of like he's lived so many lives and he's this cool character, but deep inside he has his demons where he just like he kind of welcomes death, if you will.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's why he's such an interesting character to me. Like especially even like I know you're a big Spider-Man fan, and I know when Stanley introduced
Mhm.
Spider-Man,
Mhm.
like he introduced him as this superhero that can like he has like problems. He
More
goes through problems
human.
that we go through. Yeah, he's a more human than he is a hero. And then I think and during the board they're like, well, superheroes can't be. They don't have any flaws, and it's just so like it's more interesting if superheroes do share these these faults and they do have like these not so perfect qualities about themselves because it makes it more what's the word I'm looking for,
What,
more
relatable?
relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah, relatable. I don't know why that took such a
It's fine. It's
such a
okay.
hard thought to
We all have
say,
our
but yeah,
moments.
that's the reason why I prefer seeing Wolverine a little bit more in the forefront,
Yeah.
because
I mean, I get it.
Cyclops was yeah, Cyclops, I get, like I said, I get it, like he's
It
like
was
the less unsung hero, but
Yeah. It
he
was
has
his turn
definitely
to
has
get
a
the
full
flowers,
power,
man. It
man.
was his turn.
Yeah, it's his turn. He's been bullied enough. So yeah, I think like it's his time to shine. But like
It took almost
I
20
think the
years
least
for him to get
yeah, it took
recognized.
yeah, it's his time to shine. But Wolverine, man, you just can't deny that character.